Well, I'm happy to be able to play some music today because it makes me feel a little more normal in this crazy time. This is called Be All Right. I spent some time walking outside. The mountain air's good for my mind. On the days I'm feeling more confused and need some help to make it through, remind me everything gonna be alright. Oh, oh, yeah, Well, dark is only dark till it's light, like the stars that shine through the night. When the rain is done, the clouds are gone, it leaves behind the warmth of sun, reminds me everything gonna be alright, will be alright, yeah. Well, I'm not the first one to say, but I'm gonna sing it anyway. Everything gonna be alright. Everything gonna be alright. Everything gonna be fine. Everything gonna be alright. Gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine. Yeah, fine. Take my hand, together we will stand, and if one should fall, we'll carry on for all. It'll be alright, be alright, be alright.
Good morning and welcome to Columbine Spiritual Center. We're centered in God. We celebrate a world of harmony, peace, and abundance for all. That was Steve Larson coming at you live from his home studio. When we're here at Columbine Central, and we're going to sing with you, I Am Free, I Am Unlimited from Wings of Song.
Free.
We are free. We are unlimited. Right now. Right now. We are free. We are unlimited. There are no chains that bind us. We are free. We are unlimited. Right now. Right now. We are free. We are unlimited. Right now. Right now.
Let's open in prayer, shall we? If you're comfortable, join me in closing your eyes. I always think it's good, too, to take a couple of deep breaths, to allow ourselves to settle into this moment. And sweet, loving Spirit, we give thanks this morning for all that you bring to our lives, that as your living, breathing expression, we know that you take whatever is thrown to us in life and bring a creative edge to it. Bring an opportunity for us to see and experience and unfold the potential in everything that comes our way, that we live vibrantly, that we thrive as we express who you are as us. We give thanks this morning for this opportunity, especially in this time of change that we find ourselves in, to transcend the patterns that have held us so closely defined, and to expand into the potential of all that we are. From this place of potential, from this place of aliveness, I invite you to bring to mind anyone who is in need of prayer this morning. Anyone.
Well, I hope everybody is doing okay. These are tough times, and it's so easy to feel frustrated and afraid and anxious and concerned, and we so wish we could be in church and be with everybody and see all your smiling faces, and for the moment that's just not to be. A couple of years ago I ran across an old journal of mine and opened it up, and the entry there was describing a time in my life when things were feeling very dark, and there was a lot going on in our family that was seemingly just not very positive, and the feelings were not unlike what I think we're kind of feeling today. And at the very bottom of this entry, there was this statement. It said, "We've got a long way to go to get through this tunnel, but I think I can see some light." And that was the inspiration for this song. It's called Tunnel. My old journal took me back to a time when everything was closing in. It felt like darkness all around, and I wrote it all down, and this is what it said. We got a long way to go to get through this tunnel, got some hard work to do to make things right. It's such a long way to go to get through this tunnel, but at least I finally see some light. Oh, I think I finally see We were full of frustration. We were driven by fear. We were searching for some sanity. We were paralyzed with worry. We found no comfort there. Had to open our eyes and see. We got a long way to go to get through this tunnel. Got some hard work to do to get things right. It's such a long way to go to get through this tunnel, but at least I finally see some light. Oh, I think I finally see some light. I finally see some light. Yes, I do. I think I see some light. Well, sometimes you gotta look back to see where you have been, to figure out just where you are. 'Cause in the middle of the tunnel, it's easy to forget that you've come this far. We got a long way to go to get through this tunnel. Got some hard work to do to make things right. It's such a long way to go to get through this tunnel, but at least I finally see some light. Oh, I think I finally see some light. Oh, I know it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. Yes, it is. It's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right.
We miss you. We're getting to connect with you in many different ways, but definitely feeling the impact of not getting to physically hug your neck, to see you in person. You know, one of the things that I was laughing about this week is so often I'm reminded of everyone's name by interacting with those people. And I thought, will I remember anybody in the congregation's name when, when we all get back together? Hopefully it won't be that long, right? If there's anything that we can say that this pandemic is calling us into, it's to be adaptable, We're being asked to change, and in some ways we're being forced to change. And if we're not going to change, we're going to suffer. But the good news is that our true nature is all about change. It's adaptive. It responds to life, and it brings with it a certain inspiration and a creativity that help us to unfold our life with the greatest potential possible, that we thrive when we are living out of our nature that we call the Christ, or we these days so often call just our true nature. The challenge is that for many of us, change tends to put pressure on our ego structure. And when the ego structure comes up, not so much about change. It's much more about a patterned way of being. It has its patterned way of responses. It reacts to life, not responding. And in that reacting, we are cut off from our nature, and we often suffer. The good news is that while the ego is structured inside of us, it's not fixed. In other words, it's responsive. It responds when we take the time to come to understand the underlying beliefs that it's based on, when we come to understand the different trauma and pain that it went through, when it feels seen and understood, then it tends to relax and to drop us back into the experience of our true nature. This spring, we're working with Tara Brach's, I'm going to get that name correct, Tara Brach's book, Radical Compassion. She is introducing us to the process that she calls RAIN, which is a beautiful process from transitioning to this sort of stuck place of the ego where we're caught in our reactivity, where we're caught in our pain and in our frustration, and inviting us to take a deep dive. She does that through this RAIN process, which is an acronym for recognize, allow, investigate, and then nurture. And when the ego begins to feel that sense of being understood, of being attuned to, inevitably it drops us off again in our nature. This week we're working with chapters 4 and 5. And here Tara gives us some great insight, let's say, into how we can break the trance of the ego and begin that process of dropping in. She introduces us to the idea that all of us, and this is very true, all of us come out of our childhood with the belief that there's something wrong with us. Maybe you already are in touch with that. If so, I'm not asking you to write out what your core belief about what's wrong with you in the comments section, but you can give us a little thumbs up or something. Don't worry if you're not aware of it, because we're so used to it, and we're so used to the shame that it creates in us. Tara has this to say about shame. The core feeling of shame is a sense of personal badness, and with shame comes self-aversion, fear, and the urge to hide. We're isolated, no longer a part of the circle of life. The medicine for shame is radical compassion, the loving presence that helps us trust our belonging and essential goodness. Shame is created by judgment. At least toxic shame is. Outside judgment and the judgment that comes from our inner judge, or what Freud called the superego. And when judgment comes, we tend to pull away out of that shame. We don't want anybody to know what might be discovered as being wrong with us. For me, those words speak to it pretty well. There's something wrong with you. That's what I heard my father say when I was a kid. My dad had, as probably a lot of men of that age group had, a strong idea of what a boy would be, should be. And I simply didn't fit the mold. And as our egos do, it's important to understand that the ego has an idea of how something should be, and when it doesn't fit the mold, then we try to change so that it will fit the mold. We don't change ourselves, we change whatever is outside, whatever the stimulus. In my case, my dad would, in one phraseology or another, let me know that there was something wrong with me. For years, I couldn't figure out what that was. He didn't really ever clarify, but as I got older, I came to understand that I wasn't boy enough, I wasn't tough enough, I wasn't an athlete enough, that I was too interested in creating things and making things beautiful, in doing things in the kitchen where I shouldn't be. I was definitely made to feel a certain level of shame about who I was. And then it's important to understand that then we collect all sorts of evidence. So not only did I have my dad pointing out that I wasn't being boy enough, but then I would be the one that would be singled out of a group to be teased, to be bullied. And you begin to I began to go, my God, they're seeing something in me. They're seeing what's wrong with me, even if I'm not seeing it clearly. And I learned to both isolate and to accommodate. So I want to spend some time taking you through the RAIN process, an example of the RAIN process. Because while the acronym and the steps are easy enough, the process is actually challenging and invites us often into a territory that we don't understand. 2 weeks ago, I talked about how I had this amazing experience of strong essential energies rising in me to reveal to me that I just naturally knee-jerk go to accommodating when people express frustration in me or in something that I have done. I, that weekend, felt strong and powerful and big. That perspective allowed me to see more clearly. But I woke up on Monday morning and I did not feel good. I felt small and vulnerable and afraid. And that was the opportunity to realize that something was going on. Step one. And I went to my body. Tara says this about the importance of going to our body. Our beliefs live not only in our mind, but in a constellation of feelings and emotions embedded in our bodies. As a favorite saying goes, our issues are in our tissues. They are deeply familiar. I love that she pointed out that they are deeply familiar. For you see, while I have been practicing the RAIN process, I call it something else, inquiry, for over 20 years, at first I couldn't even recognize that I was being judged from an internal judge. It was so familiar that it just seemed like it was the guiding voice inside of me. I didn't even recognize it as being harmful, as creating shame in me, as being a force that held me in this trance of separating, accommodating. And so I went to my body. I was experiencing a great deal of discomfort in my solar plexus, which is a sure sign for all of us that we are under attack. And so I went to allowing. I allowed, not for very long. I have a different perspective on attack than Tara does, Tara. But I wanted to hear what the attack was about. And it was an absolute assurance that while as a child I got to choose to isolate in order to be safe, that if I didn't accommodate, if I didn't meet the needs of the people around me when they were frustrated with me, that I would be forced into isolation, that I wouldn't have a congregation anymore, that I wouldn't have any friends. Now, at that point, I defend against the judge. I put up a boundary. I'm sorry, I was searching for that word. What is that word? I put up a boundary, and here's why. In my mind, and actually from the reading I've done, when our inner judge comes in to attack us, it is not attacking the adult of us. It is attacking our inner child. And so it would be like walking up to a situation where an 18-year-old is beating up a 4-year-old and just standing there and allowing it. That is totally unacceptable to me. For one, the judge has such a loud voice, and there's no way to hear the child in that it just holds you at this place of reactivity, of just being contracted, of being assured, right, that you need to go back to your prior behavior. So I set a boundary. Sometimes I can just say, enough, judge, back off. It doesn't mean the judge is going to stop, but it allows me then to begin to hear the child. How many of you are aware of the voice of judgment? And remember, it starts as a feeling, but as you feel it into your body, you begin to get the words. And if not, again, don't judge yourself for not knowing your judge. It's very familiar. But as you're willing to set a boundary with the judge, you make room for the child. Another thing I want you to know, by the way, this is a familiar thing that happens to all of us. We feel some kind of essential quality come up to support us to breaking out of a pattern. We suddenly feel free and expansive. We're all excited about our new life. And the ego then contracts. It's like we've gotten too big. It can't control us anymore. And it contracts and brings us back into what it feels will be a size that it can maintain. And it will be this assured feeling that you absolutely have to go back to the behaviors that you're familiar with, to the way of living that you're familiar with. And so, for me, what I want to say is if I'm dealing with a really core value, core issue for me, not a core value, a core issue, I rarely can work on it for myself. And I know that my ego is really good at helping me postpone things, procrastinate. So I have a rain session at 9 o'clock every Monday. Every Tuesday I have one at 8:30, and every Friday it fluctuates, but every Friday I have one. We always set the time for the next one before we hang up off the phone the current Friday. And I went into a rain session at 9 o'clock that morning. And I was reconnected again with the fear. There was a lot of fear up. But I wasn't, and I could feel the fear, and I could explore the fear from different directions, but it wasn't resolving like it did the weekend before. In fact, I left the session feeling like I understood more about the fear, but not sure. The same thing happened on Tuesday. I understood a little bit more, but didn't feel like I got to the real resolution. How do we know we've gotten to resolution in the RAIN process? Because there is a relaxing. When we have hit the issue on the head of the nail, inevitably, the ego relaxes and drops us back out into our true nature. Finally, on Friday, I got to the understanding that I was afraid that if I didn't accommodate, that more issues of where I was not enough, where I was deficient, where I had done it wrong would be revealed, that more would be seen in me, more would be pointed out. And suddenly this tension in my belly that had just been sort of a low-level tension became this tight, little, almost pea-sized knot in my belly. It was giving me nothing but discomfort. And I went back to allow. Okay, if there's nothing to investigate here, I'm just going to allow it and see what happens. And just after a couple of minutes, it was like a switchblade opened on that little pea, but it was more the size of my finger. And this blade just started slowly cutting through my belly. And for the first time, I could feel the pain. I could feel the pain of my dad saying there was something wrong with me. I could feel the pain of being teased and beat up. Or in my 20s, being heckled in meetings. I could feel the pain of being spit on, of having the word fag written on my car. And I allowed the pain. Just allowed it. And by the way, it felt really good to feel the pain. I had the understanding that the accommodation, see, there's an active role in accommodation. You immediately get busy in your mind. I realized it was a great defense that I really hadn't felt the pain of my childhood. If I had felt the pain, it would have only made things worse because I could feel how overwhelming it would have been to me as a kid, that I would have broken out crying, which would have just brought more attack from my dad, more attack from other boys. And I understood that as an adult, I could feel the pain, that it wasn't overwhelming to me as an adult. And within minutes, my belly released and relaxed. There was no more tight little pea. There was no more knife. There wasn't even any sense of being wounded. And I pulled that little boy close. And I told him that while I could not ensure that no one would judge us again, that I would never leave him alone in the judgment, that I would stand with him, and that I would take care of defending us, and that I loved him. And I found myself dropped into this spacious experience, just as Steve sang about in his 2 songs, that no matter what situation I found myself in, everything was going to be okay. I felt peaceful, still, expansive, quiet. And I stay with that experience every time because I'm so used to getting wrapped up into all the tension and tightness of life that we need to begin to pause and rest when our nature shows itself. Our nature is loving, peaceful. At times, it's strong and powerful. At others, it's compassionate and empathetic. It can manifest in literally dozens of ways. But it is our true nature, the place where we're connected, the place we're invited to live. And it's a joyful experience. In the book of James, there's a beautiful analogy that I think we can use. My brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of any kind, consider it nothing but joy, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its full effect, so that you may be mature and complete, lacking in nothing. If you just leave that up for a while, what we get to see here is that our faith is in our true nature, not in our ego and all of the judgment and shame and the desire to hide some fact that there's something flawed in us. That when we're willing to leave this level of frustration and pain and sorrow and take the deep dive into what's really going on here, letting our body be the guide, that we find that the resulting true nature, after we have supported and understood what's going on for our ego, is in fact enduring, supports us through every situation, brings us to a sense of feeling mature and absolutely complete, that there is nothing wrong with us. Yes, there is absolute assurance in the moment of an ego attack that we must go back to our old ways. It's fun. I actually named this talk Real but Not True. To recognize how real it can feel that we have to go back into the patterns that have helped us survive. But if we ask ourselves, is it true that we will not thrive unless we go back to those patterns? Most of the time, if not all the time, we can say, no, it's not true. It's not true that I don't have friends that love me, despite the fact that I don't feel a need to accommodate with them. It's not true that this entire congregation would disappear if I stopped being an accommodator. It simply isn't true. Now, does it mean my life might change a little bit? This week, a friend asked me if I would do something for them. I checked in and I said, no, that doesn't feel right to me. And my friend, I could feel the pause on the other end of the phone as my friend said, well, that's new. Doesn't mean there won't be ramifications to letting go of the patterns. So, let's take a couple of deep breaths as we move into a short time of meditation together. Let whatever tensions in your body, let them be there, but breathe gently into them. One thing I didn't mention is I always breathe through the entire rain process. Breathing deeply into any constriction I find, breathing even into large expansion to make room for me, the truth of who I am, my true nature. And as you close your eyes and begin to settle into this moment, allow yourself just to be with whatever your experience is. No need to change it. But to gently begin to see beyond that experience. If it's one of tension or frustration or contraction, just to sense deeper into it. To sense with an open heart, with a curious mind, to be ready for that which needs to be revealed, to be revealed. And having set that intention, to now just relax, if you can, if your body will allow you. Let's relax for a few minutes in the midst of all this change. To relax into the truth that from the maturity of our true nature, everything is okay. Everything will be okay. All potential is being released now. And so we sit together now for a few minutes in the quiet.
So in this just moment, as we're holding that, I invite you all to flood it with hearts. Let's just remember that we are here together, and that regardless of what's happening out there We know that we are love. And through these difficult times, we continue to be connected here on Facebook, on YouTube, and in this virtual setting. So let's send out the hearts and have everybody know how much we love each other and how grateful we are to be together. So this is the time in our service where we're going to do our offering. And we'll start with the offering, and then I'll do my announcements. But as I've said before, this prayer just means so much, not only for abundance, but for everything in our lives. God's love has always met and will always meet all my needs. I give freely, I receive abundantly, and I am grateful. We want to thank everybody from the absolute depth of our heart for the continued giving that you have done here at Columbine, and it is allowing us to really see the strength of our community, and that we know that this too shall pass and we will be in these seats together again, but that you show up here online, that we're doing this thing together, that we can continue to thrive, that we have the ability to maintain our staff and reach out to everybody. Again, my desk is filled with amazing notes that we're receiving in the mail, and I'm sending out thank yous to every contribution that comes across my way, and we just can't thank you enough. So there's plenty of ways to give. One of our new ones that we're kind of excited about is that Breeze has a text to give option. And if you text the word give to 720-902-9998, that will give you the instructions immediately to be able to give a love offering right away to our general fund, and that is much appreciated. You can also go to the website, and there's a donate button on the website, which takes you to a link that has our PayPal, and you can do through your PayPal or through a credit card. We have the Tithely app. You can write us a check. And I also wanted to mention that using King Soopers continues to be, and the grocery script, but King Soopers in particular, you don't have to do anything other than choose Columbine as your charity. And on the slide that is in the announcements that has our little number on it, then we get 5%. And so we're all still shopping. So that is a way to help us. And also Amazon Smile. So if you do smile.amazon, you can choose Columbine as your charity as well. And we get a portion of that. I'm also really working hard to try to sell all of our grocery script that we have in stock. So if you are interested in Sprouts, Natural Grocers, Lucky's, or Safeway, we have denominations of $50 a piece, and you can email me and we can figure out how to get that to you. So our last announcement is today is our annual meeting. So if you are a member, a voting member, there's all kinds of membership, there's belonging, and we want everyone to be a member, but if you have done everything that it takes to be a voting member here at Columbine, thank you for filling out your renewal cards that came via email, and we did online this year. And starting at noon, the Zoom meeting will be opened up for people to just log on and get accustomed to it. Some of you haven't Zoomed before. Hopefully you've already set up the app in there, and click the link that I sent by email. And right after this, I'm going to run to my desk, and so you can email me if you are having trouble, or call the office, so here in the church, because I'll be here to get you logged on. And at 12:15, we'll start our meeting, led by Scott and the board.
And Sue.
And Sue, yeah, since it's Zoom, Sue's at her office waiting as well. So those are our announcements for today, and we were sorry for the little glitch in the music. So we're going to close out with Steve Larson's Tunnel Song so that we can hear it once again. And we're so glad that you joined us today, and we're grateful that you're part of Columbine. Everybody have a good week. See everybody, all the voting members soon.
Love you.
Love you.
Love you.